Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And since today is Mother's Day, we've got a Mother's Day suggestion for the film. And it is for the 1960 horror mystery thriller Psycho. Here is your trivia question for today. After watching the screening of this film for the first time, what permanent decision did actress Janet Leigh make? The answer will be at the end of this video. The story starts with Marion Crane, who works at a real estate agency. She also has a lover named Sam Loomis, who unfortunately can't be with her due to financial issues. That is until one day when a gentleman comes into the real estate agency offering $40,000 in cash for a property. Marion seizes the opportunity and steals the money so she can run off and be with Sam. Marion, while on the run, ends up in the middle of a storm and has to bed down for the night somewhere. She runs into a small motel off the interstate called the Bates Motel, and this is where she meets Norman Bates, the gentleman who owns the motel. Norman seems nice enough, although a bit odd. He does live with his invalid mother up on the house right next to the motel. Norman's mother, however, hearing that there's an attractive woman at the motel, has to take things into her own hands as she doesn't want some pretty girl taking away her son. So she takes out Marion. Norman, of course, being the dutiful son, hides all the evidence of Marion ever being there. It does appear, though, that there is a private investigator hot on the trail, along with Lila, who happens to be Marion's sister, and Sam Loomis, who are working together to find her. Now, will Norman be able to throw them all off the trail and keep his mother's secret safe? Now, the movie is an adaptation of the book Psycho by Robert Bloch. Alfred Hitchcock actually bought the rights for this book for $9,000. And what's interesting is in the original novel, Norman Bates is actually fat, short, a little bit older, and very dislikable. The primary inspiration for the book was actually after the serial killer Ed Gein. And actually, quite a few other movies were also inspired by him, including Deranged, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs. Around the time of filming this movie, Alfred Hitchcock's director's fee was normally about $250,000. Now, the studio did not have much faith in this one being a success. So, the only way that he was able to get this movie made is by agreeing to get paid a 60% stake in the film. Boy, did they regret that, as it ended up being a huge success. Anthony Perkins was actually paid $40,000 for appearing in the film, which is funny as that's the exact amount of money that Marion Crane stole at the beginning of the movie. Alfred Hitchcock has stated that he gained a lot of inspiration from the movie Diabolique. Now, Diabolique does have a very famous bathtub scene. And what's funny about this is Alfred Hitchcock once received a letter from an angry father stating that his daughter, due to the movie Diabolique, was terrified of taking baths. And now, due to Psycho, she was terrified of taking showers. Alfred Hitchcock actually sent a letter back to this father, which just stated, well, then send her to the dry cleaners. Hitchcock has also stated that a lot of his success for this film is due to the composer Bernard Herrmann, who actually was the one who suggested putting music to the actual shower scene. Apparently, Anthony Perkins was the only actor that Alfred Hitchcock had in mind to play the character of Norman Bates. Vera Miles was not the only actress who was up for the role of Lila Crane. Apparently, there was also Kim Stanley, Felicia Farr, Carolyn Jones, and Eleanor Parker. John Gavin was also not the only actor up for the role of Sam Loomis. There was also Stuart Whitman, Tom Tryon, Brian Keith, Cliff Robertson, and Rod Taylor. The role of Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, actually had the most potential actresses, as there was also Eve Marie Saint, Lee Remick, Angie Dickinson, Piper Laurie, Martha Heyer, Hope Lang, Shirley Jones, Lana Turner, and even Gene Simmons that were possibly up for that role. Now, technically, there is actually a second actress who plays Marion Crane, as Marley Renfro was her body double for the shower scene. Renfro was actually a Playboy model. Hitchcock, of course, makes his regular cameo appearance in all of his films, and he is the man with the cowboy hat standing outside of the real estate agency. There was never any plan to have an actress play the character of Mrs. Bates. Hitchcock not only would place a chair around the set, though, just to remind people that there was an actual character there and the presence was strong, but he would consistently make jokes to the newspapers that he was looking for an actress for the role. Hitchcock actually had a very good sense of humor. In fact, when trying to decide whether or not the fake corpse for Mother was scary enough, he placed it inside Janet Leigh's dressing room without telling her, and decided to use her scream as a test as to whether or not it was scary enough. Hitchcock also would mess with Anthony Perkins, as throughout the entire filming process of the movie, he would only refer to him as Master Bates. Ted Knight actually has a small cameo in this movie as one of the police officers at the end of the film. If you don't know, Ted Knight is very well known as the newscaster from The Mary Tyler Moore Show. The blood used in the film was actually Bosco chocolate syrup. When Marion gets stabbed in the shower, the actual stabbing noise is a knife going into a cassava melon. The house that Norman and his mother reside in is actually modeled after an oil painting called House by the Railroad. Here are some interesting things you may not have noticed in the film. First of all, when Marion first shows up, she's wearing a white bra and has a white purse. But after she's stolen the $40,000, both her bra and her purse are now black. At the end of the film, once Mother has fully taken over the psyche of Norman, they actually superimpose her skull over his face. The shower scene took 7 days to film. The scene where the psychiatrist gives the full explanation of what's going on at the end of the film is actually Hitchcock's least favorite scene. In fact, he only put that in there because the studio demanded that there be more explanation for those who couldn't follow the full story. John Carpenter has stated that he got a lot of inspiration from the movie Psycho for his movie Halloween. In fact, the name Sam Loomis from Psycho actually appears in his movie with Dr. Sam Loomis. He was also so happy that Jamie Lee Curtis appeared in the film since she's actually the daughter of actress Janet Leigh. Also in the movie Halloween H2O, Janet Leigh actually does appear in that film and is driving a very similar car to the one she has in Psycho. There's a reference in the movie Carrie with the high school being called Bates High School. And then also in the movie Scream, they use the name Loomis again with the character of Billy Loomis. There were even 3 sequels and a remake of the movie Psycho, which unfortunately none of them were all that great. There was, however, a pretty interesting television series called Bates Motel that is the origin stories of Norman Bates and his mother. Psycho is an absolute classic when it comes to horror movies, and I definitely have to give this movie a 5 out of 5. And since it is Mother's Day, don't forget, a boy's best friend is his mother. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, after watching the screening of this film for the first time, what permanent decision did actress Janet Leigh make? Janet Leigh noticed while watching the screening just how vulnerable people were when taking a shower. So because of that fact, and since then, she only ever took baths for the rest of her life. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.